Okay, we are rolling. We are rolling, brother. Champions of Champions boxing talk here. Well, I'm going to talk about the post Terence Crawford Amir Khan fight today and some more important factors, which is, vital for the welterweight division. Will Spence and Terence Crawford lock horns? There seems to be the, typical lock between promoters again, doesn't there? We are sick of it. And I'm going to say this straight away, whether you agree with me or not, that's your prerogative. But I don't think it's Bob Arum's fault in this case. Did you see how confident and how he was blatant, Bob Arum, after the Khan fight, that he and Terence Crawford wanted the Spence fight? Now, I know there are a lot of smoke and mirrors among promoters in boxing, and Bob Arum is probably the most experienced promoter, if not the most experienced person in the whole of boxing, right? But still, I don't know, I tend to believe him. I tend to think that Bob Arum, hint hint, has been down this road before when certain promoters would not fight his star fighter. Anyway, onto the fight. First of all, the media. The media. I'll tell you right now, I am not a big fan of the mainstream media. And I don't think I'm on my own these days. When you mention mainstream media, right, most people today ask you, where did you read your story? And if you say one of the tabloids, that generally means to a person listening to you, that it can't be true. If a tabloid wrote it, it must be nonsense. And they're right, I agree. The tabloids to me are, at best, you make your fish and chips and put it in that paper, or you just burn it, because the stories are absolute nonsense. Right? They're a copy and paste culture. You read one, you've read them all. Right? They are so infuriating. Amir Khan is getting an absolute roasting today, and I'm going to be balanced in the way I say what I'm going to say, for being a quitter. Now, the fight at the weekend was, shall we say, only a small percentage of Amir Khan's total career. The rest of his career, he is the last fighter of this generation that could have ever been labelled a quitter. His reputation going into this fight was of a man that would take on King Kong, right? Providing that he didn't have to face Kell Brook, right? Now, I'm going to say it. He would rather have gotten beaten up by Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, or Manny Pacquiao, whoever you care to mention, than face Kell Brook, because those two have beef. They've got things against each other. Khan was never scared of Kell Brook physically. How could you be when you faced, Danny Garcia, Terence Crawford, Marcus Maidana, Canelo Alvarez? It's not possible. What it is it's a grudge. And still don't expect that fight to happen now. Even though that is probably, in terms of where the grand scheme of things are, the only place Amir Khan can go now. Right? I did say, right, but before I get into it, Amir Khan, if, and I don't know much about this universe, let alone boxing, right? If Amir Khan asked me, I'd say hang him up. He's past his prime. I've said this now for the past couple of fights. Remember the video I did about a year ago when I said I don't know who's more past the prime, Pacquiao or Khan? Amir Khan is more past his prime than Manny Pacquiao. He is. I know he's 8 years younger, but already he's talking about potential fights with Furman and Pacquiao. The same thing, if not worse, would happen to Amir Khan v those guys. You know why? Pacquiao is naturally more aggressive than Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford really didn't know Amir Khan. Manny Pacquiao has spent years in the gym with the fella when he was with Freddie Roach. He knows everything, and what would Pacquiao be facing? A weaker version. And there's no headgear. All these stories that Amir Khan was holding his own in sparring, it's not the same as a fight, guys. And people say, oh, he fights well against southpaws. Did you see what happened when Terence Crawford switched to southpaw? There are levels to southpaws. He's never faced a southpaw like Terence Crawford, or I should say, a guy that can fight from the southpaw stance like Terence Crawford. He's never in a professional fight fought a southpaw like Pacquiao. So the stance, don't always buy into it. Zab Judah is not Terence Crawford. Zab Judah is not Manny Pacquiao. Luis Collazo is not Terence Crawford. Luis Collazo is not Manny Pacquiao. It's time to call it a day, in my opinion, right? But the last bit on this quitter stuff. Are we going to say that Roberto Duran's career is defined because he quit against Sugar Ray Leonard and he looked less hurt against Sugar Ray Leonard than Amir Khan did? You know, if we're going to judge one fighter by one standard, let's judge them all by the same standard, shall we? Are we going to call Oscar De La Hoya because he was taking an absolute pasting, being pulled out against Pacquiao, a quitter? Are we going to call Kostya Tszyu, who couldn't answer the bell for the 12th round when he was, beaten to a pulp by Ricky Hatton, a quitter? I think the media, again, is a bit disrespectful. But I will say this, and that this is the balance. If a footballer has a sore foot and he refuses to kick a ball, he's going to get criticism. That is just the nature of the beast. Boxers are supposed to be different from the norm, right? It's not like me backing out of a fight or you backing out of a fight. These are supposed to be unique. And 99% of the time, Amir Khan, in his braveness, has been unique. So I'll give him a pass, right, on this. Yes, the shot was low. Do I think he could have carried on? Personally, I think he should have took at least the 5 minutes. But it looked to me like the corner couldn't wait to really stop it. And Amir Khan was sort of in agreement. I mean, I've seen certain fighters who have nearly had fights. Paulie Malignaggi, when he was getting beat real bad to Ricky Hatton, and his trainer threw in the towel. Paulie Malignaggi nearly started fighting worse with his trainer than he was fighting with Hatton, right? So they did look a bit hasty to quit, but let's just say that Khan had never been in that situation before. All his losses, it was over before he kind of knew it. Brady's Prescott, bam, bam, over and done, right? Danny Garcia, he was winning that fight. He was having good success. Then the left hook landed, right? Took his equilibrium away completely. And then, of course, he took a concussive beating till the referee called it off. Canelo Alvarez, as I said, aside from body shots that were sneaking in early from Canelo, Khan was outboxing and outmoving Canelo until that right hand landed. And sometimes a clean knockout can be better for you than a concussive beating. And we know if Khan would have got out the 6th round, he would have continued to take a big beating, right? Because, as I said, I expected Terence Crawford to have Amir Khan figured out by round 2, but he had him figured out by round 1. It was a huge shock. It took Canelo 6 rounds to drop Khan. It took Terence Crawford just 1. And the speed, the switch hitting, the accuracy, as I said, it was a far more difficult task for Khan than the Canelo fight. And it proved to be right. I don't get why people didn't see this. Yes, he hasn't got the physical strength of Canelo. He probably doesn't have the one-punch knockout power of Canelo, but he has faster feet, better feet, quicker hands, just as accurate. Can fight on the front foot, can chase fast-footed guys around, is quicker than most fast-footed fighters. That's Terence Crawford for you. And like I said, he started in an orthodox stance because Terence Crawford is a student. He'd have known Khan has a good history with southpaws. But at first, testing the waters, he started orthodox, right? And then legendary Amir Khan mistake happened, didn't it? The left hand went down, as it did against Samuel Vargas, as it did against Canelo Alvarez. This is the leopard doesn't change its spots part, isn't it? And Terence Crawford landed a very good right hand, stunned Khan, and then maneuvered round the ring to clip him with a left hand and drop Khan. And Khan was on wobbly legs from the get-go, right? But take away the punch. I mean, the punch was fast to get there, but I'll tell you what was even quicker. Amir Khan dropping that hand and giving the space, right? You can't do that against any level of professional fighter. But he does it time and time again. He did it multiple times in the Chris Algieri fight. Got away with it because Chris Algieri can't punch like that. Now, this is very simplistic stuff. So what does that tell you about Amir Khan? Yes, he's a warrior. Yes, he's a multiple world champion. And the people do often talk about his chin. But his biggest problem, apart from being, a repetitive style boxer, but the biggest, right, the elephant in the room, is his boxing IQ. No boxer with a mega high IQ would make that mistake over and over and over again. You know when Floyd Mayweather got hit by Shane Mosley with that shot? Nobody ever landed that shot on Floyd again in his whole career. Right? That'll tell you a high ring IQ. Khan has just not made the adjustments. And in fact, as he's gone older, he's more vulnerable. But yet, no, it is real basic stuff. No, super elite fighter, forgets to just keep the hands up. You don't really... Crawford really didn't have to do anything special to land that shot. He just waited for Khan to drop that hand. And that was all she kind of wrote. But Crawford outmaneuvered him, outskilled him, outlanded him. The stats were sensational in the sense that Crawford landed double the amount of punches, both jabs and power shots. Amir Khan had landed only 44 shots on Terence Crawford. And here's the other astonishing thing. See, when you get a great surgeon, a great counterpuncher, a great magician, a boxing magician at that, he can lower your output, right? Lower it. Crawford threw more shots, ironically, than Amir Khan. And Crawford was perceived in this fight to be the lower volume, competitor. I.e. Khan would throw more shots. Maybe Crawford would block more, but Khan would throw more and Crawford would land the accurate shots. He even took that away from Amir Khan. Amir Khan was so concerned about what was coming forward and how sharp it was that he took Amir Khan's ability to throw any punches. And when Khan did throw, his feet were sort of so not planted and off balance that there was very minimal power in the shots. But that's the greatness of Terence Crawford in that sense. Because, to be fair, Amir Khan, his pride was he's never been outboxed. Well, I think his pride was hurting far more at being outboxed than ever being knocked out. Because being knocked out, in a sense, even though Khan did make fundamental mistakes defensively, can happen to anyone, right? It can happen to the best of them. But again, I'll compare Amir Khan again. The left hand goes down and he is a sucker time and time again. He'll do it in the next fight if he fights on. And he gets hit with the right hand, right? Another guy, Pacquiao got knocked out big style by Marquez with that big right hand. Have you seen Manny Pacquiao hit with that shot again? Never. Even Floyd Mayweather found it a bit more difficult to land a clean right hand on Pacquiao than he used to against other opponents, because Pacquiao, although he sort of neglected his offense in that fight, had learned something. And that's the sign of a ring master, when they learn something. Anybody can be beat, anybody can do this and do that, but it's when you evolve. That's the mark of a ring IQ. Evolution, either in the fight or in subsequent fights. Amir Khan has God-given talent, God-given speed, right? That's just, he's blessed with it, but he's relied on it, and that's all he seems to have in that sense, right? Defense is declining. It was never the best, but it's declining. Head movement is declining. Still, old mistakes are there. As I say, what does that tell you? It's time to call it a day. But as I said, Canelo Alvarez could not dominate Amir Khan the way Terence Crawford did. But again, Amir Khan has been a tremendous fighter for the sport. All fighters are flawed, in a sense. Nobody's perfect, I'm not saying that. But we do know that a few little nip and tucks here could have given Amir Khan a better career than what has already been a terrific career anyway, right? And the problem he faced was, I did bring up that an Amir Khan win would be less of a shock than Mike Tyson losing to Buster Douglas. But the difference is Mike Tyson at times, he was stupid. Let's face it, he hasn't got the brains Terence Crawford's got. Tyson just thought he had to turn up at times, hit the guy and they'd fall over, right? Terence Crawford doesn't underestimate anybody. Mike Tyson at times he underestimated a lot of people and paid the penalty, right? But Terence Crawford never underestimates anybody. A bit like when Floyd Mayweather said, when they asked Floyd, are you going to look at any sort of jinx in Manny Pacquiao's armour? And Floyd Mayweather said, I'm not focusing on what Manny Pacquiao necessarily doesn't do well. I'm focusing on what he does do well, right? That's Terence Crawford, a similar mindset. But Mike Tyson, again, Amir Khan, they're impulsive people, aren't they? Right? So, on a night, a club fighter could beat Mike Tyson because he's out partying and doing stupid things, right? Different personality, but Terence Crawford is in that gym studying hard. And that's what makes him super difficult for anyone. So, bringing on to the next topic, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford. I'm just going to say it straight. Right now, I think Terence Crawford beats Errol Spence because of that footwork. It just will not let Errol Spence, right, set himself and set Crawford to do what Errol Spence does best, which is attack with body shots. The jab against Mikey Garcia was fast from Errol Spence. I'm not taking that away from him. And it was better than many people expected. Mikey Garcia, although he wasn't stopped, didn't really win a round in there. Mikey Garcia is a good boxer, right? But, Errol Spence is well schooled. He's an Olympian for a reason. He has a good jab. He has a withering body attack. He is ultra aggressive. He can switch, right? But Errol Spence is not really a guy that relies on blistering speed. He can sort of be able to do what he can do, I think, till he's, into his mid-30s. A bit like Gennady Golovkin is still fighting now at 37 because he doesn't need to have Roy Jones Jr. speed or reflexes, right? That will sort of be, to me, what Errol Spence may be down the road. Crawford, although, again, he has a ring IQ like very few, does rely on speed and fast footwork to get him into range, out of range, to cause trouble, to get out of trouble, right? I think Heyman are playing it good here. They're going to wait a few years for Crawford's legs to slow down, because what that means is he's caught in a phone booth situation, potentially, real close up with Errol Spence. And when you're close to Errol Spence, he can deliver that withering body attack and attempt to break you down. Where if they face Crawford now with his peak in hand and all his facilities available, Crawford can outbox Spence, move away, avoid that body work, because the way to avoid body work is good foot movement. The way to stop good footwork is body shots. So it's a question of who can place their style on the other guy. Right now, I think Crawford has the feet to take away 50% of what Errol Spence does. And if Errol Spence can't slow him down, he could be a sitting duck. I'm not saying Errol Spence gets taken out like Amir Khan, but I think he could be clinically outboxed. But if Crawford, due to age, he's 31 now, 2 years older than Errol Spence, if Crawford's feet slow somewhat, it can be a different affair altogether, because Spence knows then he can keep Crawford still and attempt to do what he does, right? implement his aggressiveness. Don't get me wrong, we could end up in a situation where Crawford's legs do slow, and Crawford by then may have developed even new talents to his already massive list of them. He might beat Errol Spence to the punch in the pocket. We don't know. But right now, I don't think that's a good idea. I think he's best using his movement. And I think right now, if they were caught in the pocket consistently, because Errol Spence is more used to doing it in a sense, I think he'd have some big success there. But Crawford wouldn't let him do it, right? Crawford, to me, is easier to hit than Floyd Mayweather as well. Floyd Mayweather could sort of stand in spots and make you miss absolutely everything and then move away or counter you. I don't think Crawford can do that. Crawford also is a little bit more aggressive than Floyd Mayweather. That could also play against him, right? Floyd Mayweather is more the tame, cooler sort of guy that will find the right punch rather than going in there thinking he's got a grudge with the opponent. He doesn't care about settling a grudge. He's just interested in winning a fight that lasts 36 minutes. That's all Floyd Mayweather's interested in. But Terence Crawford needs this fight for me soon. And I think Heyman is waiting on seeing Crawford in subsequent years now looking that little bit slower, because it gives Errol Spence the chance to cut the ring off and do what he does. So if I'm Terence Crawford and I'm Bob Arum, I'm working on the adjustment of improving the defense even further without the footwork, if that makes sense. Figuring out how to defend so brilliantly when you're actually still that Errol Spence cannot do what he does. Then that might shock Spence and Al Heyman. But at 31, it is sort of difficult to totally change what you do, particularly when Terence Crawford, again, is many things in one fighter. What I mean by that is he's an attacker. He's a ring IQ specialist. He's a masterful boxer. He can be a slugger. He can be this. He can be that. When they talk about pure boxers, I don't know if I can actually think of Terence Crawford as a pure boxer. He played the pure boxer role against Victor Postol, but to me, he's been an aggressive boxer puncher since. I think Crawford, myself, was really angry at the criticism he got in the Postol fight. And since then, he's decided, no, this is going to be entertainment, and I'm going to throw leather, right? So he can be riveting attacking-wise. And his feet are phenomenal, not just in the speed, but the way he places them. The right hand does remind me of that sort of left hook that was the final shot that dropped Amir Khan reminded me of Floyd Mayweather. Again, very different to Mayweather in certain spots, but you can see that there's a computer going on in their head, you know. But I think Crawford is and this is going to sound blasphemous, I think Floyd Mayweather I still think Floyd Mayweather would beat Terence Crawford at his best. Floyd Mayweather is absolutely sensational. But I think Crawford makes more adjustments than Mayweather. I think he's more of an adjuster. Floyd Mayweather, to me, when he's fought aggressive opponents, he really hasn't changed so much as he's slowed the other guy down with, you know, that constant jab to the body which takes the wind out of the sails, and then he just does what he does. But in terms of switch hitting and things like that, Crawford does it, he does it infinitely more than Mayweather. So to me, he's more of the adjuster. But what is next for Terence Crawford? I know there was a reporter that asked him, is he going to go up to 154? And he said he's only had 3 fights at that weight. Well, who's going to fight him at 147 pound? All the names are on Heyman's side. Porter, Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman. Pacquiao is there now, right? What top name is he going to get at 147 pound? The fight I'm thinking is Kell Brook. I mean, I think Brook does better against Crawford than Khan does. I still think Crawford would be favourite, but I think Brook does better. We'll talk about that later down the road. But I think that's the obvious option because the other 5 guys I've mentioned are not there, and if Kell Brook isn't there, just suppose that fight doesn't happen, who? He can't keep going down and fight lower competition. It's got to be up and up and up here from now on because he's, as I said, he's 31. Right? He's 31 years of age. As I said, comparing him with Floyd Mayweather. Look at the resume of Floyd Mayweather by age 31. It was beyond Hall of Fame worthy. Now, Terence Crawford, to me, freeweight world champion, one of the best pound for pound. Skill set and what he's achieved is Hall of Fame worthy. But there are really no Hall of Fame, maybe potentially Amir Khan, but really there are no Hall of Fame fighters on that resume. Right? There were plenty with Floyd. So now it's time to get the ball rolling. And if that might mean he takes on, which would be great preparation for Spence, wouldn't it? Say he took on a Jared Hurd and won. How good would that look? If he fought a Jared Hurd and won. Because I'm telling you guys, Crawford has scared off the majority of top guys at 147 pounds. And I don't mean he's scared of Pacquiao. You can't really say Pacquiao is scared of anybody. He's 40 years of age. He should be allowed to do what he does now. He's earned the right. At 30 years of age, Pacquiao would have fought Crawford. It would have happened, right? And he would have fought Crawford after 30. We know Pacquiao is not bothered, right? Pacquiao's talking about fighting Keith Thurman and people like that. It's not him that's the problem. It's the other 4 and Al Heyman, right? So it's a bit unfair to put Manny Pacquiao in with the other bunch because Pacquiao is the elder statesman of the sport. But the other guys, they're running from Crawford, I'm telling you. So what does Crawford do? He can't fight Bradley Skeet, can he? Let's just be honest about it. He can't go back down to 140 pounds, can he? And I don't think that's likely. So what are the options? Maybe, even though he's a bit angry about it, a potential title in 4 weight classes. If he beat a Jared Hurd, well, fantastic. But that's an option. It may or may not happen. Eventually, if there's enough money, you see Errol Spence did good pay-per-view numbers, didn't he? He sold out Texas. Madison Square Garden was booming with Crawford. There is money in that fight, and if enough green stuff turns up, maybe we might get that fight. But I think there's a word, isn't there, marinating. I think Spence and the like are looking at Crawford and thinking, let's make this marinate for a bit, shall we? This guy looks a bit, dangerous. So if we let it marinate and he slows down a little bit, he's less dangerous, but still a name. We've seen it all before, haven't we? But that's my take on things. Terence Crawford, fantastic performance for me again. Amir Khan has been a tremendous warrior in the sport, give us some great fights. He might have a fight or 2 left in him, but for me, it would be time to call it a day. The Brook fight, the luster is off the Brook fight now, but I think Crawford-Brook should be a goer. This is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brother.